go ahead. I think I just hit share. I think we're going live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Career Lab Wednesday. I'm your host, George Miller, here with you almost every Wednesday throughout the year. I am excited. Well, I'll change the word. The topic for today's session is meaningful to me today. Um, I've been on a journey of healing with a lot of physical pain, so it's kind of we didn't necessarily plan it this way, but it worked out well that today's topic is syncing up well with my life. So I want to share a few ways that you can engage with me. You can jump in here directly on Zoom. I love it when you do that. I can talk to you one-to-one that way. If you are not able to jump in on Zoom, if you're just watching on LinkedIn Live or streaming on YouTube, you can go ahead and type your questions into the comment section. I'll do my best to get to those and to understand your question and address it that way. If you notice, if I'm answering your question and I don't seem to be on track with what you're wanting, let me know. Type in, oh, George, no, I don't mean with my team in that way. I want help with my team in this other kind of a way. So something like that. Just let me know if I'm on track with you. So again, you can jump in directly here on Zoom. I love talking to you one-to-one. If you can't do that, you can always type your questions into the comment section, and I'll do my best to address that. So we are looking at pain and discomfort, and that comes up a lot in career. Because anytime that I'm moving into a new phase of my career, there's going to be discomfort. If you've been on before, you've heard me reference Jack Mesereau about how learning as an adult is transformation, whereas learning as a child is formation. Well, one of the things that comes with transformation is often discomfort. So with the changes that happen in career, I'm going to benefit more from that if I'm able to be with the discomfort. So that's why I train people in core feelings: fear, hurt, anger, sadness, and joy. Because the more that somebody is able to be present with their core feelings, the better they are able to be present with what's happening in their work environment. So if I'm going into a review and I'm getting challenging feedback, that's going to have all kinds of feelings come up for me. So I'll feel afraid, obviously. I'll feel, and sometimes people say, oh, I'm not really afraid. Well, then think of it as anxiety or concern. Then hurt. Maybe I think that the feedback that I'm getting is not really representative of what I actually contributed. So it's like, oh, I'm feeling hurt, like I'm not really appreciated here the way that I was expecting to be appreciated. And then then that can also have some irritation of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So we want to be present with the feelings as we are getting feedback from the world, getting feedback in our meetings, getting feedback in our reviews. And the better that I can be present with my feelings, then I will be able to do something with the data of the feedback that's coming my way. And if I'm just seeking to push that away, to say, no, you didn't understand what I did over the course of the last 6 months or whatever, that's okay, but I need to be good at communicating where I'm coming from. And most of us, when that comes up in a review, in an interview or something, most of us will not address it. We will make defenses or shut down or something. We will not be as effective as we could be. And the step number one is to be with the discomfort. So if you've watched me all over the winter, I've been hopping into Lake Michigan and running around on the ice. And one of the reasons I do that is to train myself to be with feelings, is to feel, really let myself feel what's going on. And now I've been in another series of trials and tribulations of working through my back seizing up and going to physical therapy like almost every day. And in that space, again, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, like the physical therapist they're not hurting me. The pain is already there. All they're doing is drawing attention to it. And it's my job to breathe into that and to take the feedback from it and have my muscles do something different, to have my muscles relax more, to have my muscles stretch more. And as I work through that, as I'm working with that feedback instead of pushing it away, then I start to get the positive results. So I hope that if you're listening in, that you can apply this to somewhere in your life. Where is it that you have discomfort, and perhaps in your career or in some relationship? And what is that discomfort communicating to you? So again, that's the overall topic for today. But as you're joining in, I want to say that there's a few ways you can engage. I love it, of course, when you jump in here directly on Zoom. And if you're not able to do that, you can type your questions into the comment section. And your questions, by the way, you don't have to try to stay on topic with this. I will probably tie it back to emotional intelligence, and that's my expertise. So I kind of see lots of connections when you're having trouble with resume or interview or networking, or even just knowing what you want to do, knowing what's important to you in your career. I see that all of those things I just named will be like a mirror for you and will help you understand yourself and your feelings more as we dive into it. So again, your questions, you don't have to try to stay on topic. Anything career related is welcome. Go ahead and type your questions into the comment section, and I will do my best to play with them. There's a few ways too that you can engage with me. If you want to set up a one-to-one time with me, you can grab 15 to 20 minutes on my calendar, and I'll do what I can to help you in that time. I will work with you on crafting the vision of where you want to go, or work with you on some sticky points that you might be having in your interviews. I'm happy to help with that, and we might find that you want to do some more coaching, and we might have a coaching relationship develop from that, but no need for that if that's not what you're looking for. You can also keep track of what I'm up to on YouTube and on LinkedIn, where I'm sharing content and sharing bits about emotional intelligence. So those are a few ways to engage with me. Now, I want to dig in a little bit more on how to be with discomfort as you are growing into the new position, new space that you're working in. And again, feel free to interrupt. If you have any questions at any time, type them in, and I will do my best to work with them. So, I'm thinking of a client who is working on, had this thing happen at work where basically they're in a really secure position because their expertise is pretty high and they're kind of not replaceable. But a lot of transition is happening around them. And so they are going through a lot of losses. And, even people, more, their supervisors and things, and some of them are being let go. And so now the tendency that they would have had would be to step in and now try to do everything and handle all the moving parts. And they're quite bright, so they might be able to take a shot at it. However, they also are wise enough now to know that that's not going to work for them long term. And so they kind of can't just put their head down and grind tasks out. And they're seeing, as they're being with the discomfort of people leaving and being with the grief, the sadness of that, as they're doing that, they're now able to see that they are going to have to let certain things fail so that the organization and to communicate like, hey, this thing, if we don't get eyes on this and if we don't have someone handling this, like, here's the impact that that's going to have, that this is the impact that that's going to have for the business. And so they are now dealing with their feelings in a new way. They're allowing themselves to feel that discomfort. They're used to rescuing, and they would rescue things out of a tendency to avoid their own feelings. Well, now that they're allowing themselves to do that, they're taking more responsible action. The responsibility, the ability to respond appropriately. And it's incredibly uncomfortable, but it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for them to say, okay, we need people in these positions, and we need to invest in, somebody that we know that can handle it. And it either means that this company is going to go under and be sold or whatever. But if we want to take it, if we want a viable shot at this existence, here's what we need to do. And that's often a challenging thing for people to do, to be that kind of upfront about what's going on for them. A lot of us will work harder to try to fill in the gaps and not and at the expense for ourselves, and then it doesn't really allow people to know what the real problem is. So this is I'm talking about myself here too. Like, there's ways that many of us do this kind of thing. So again, paying attention to what the feelings are will then highlight what's going on in the system or going on in me or in the work environment, will help me get better data about what's happening. So I hope that that's helpful. That's what I was thinking about while sharing on today's topic. We are coming up on 15 minutes in. I want to share with anybody who is just joining in that you're welcome to type your questions into the comment section. You don't have to try to stay on topic. You can ask anything about your career, resume, interviewing, managing your team, relationship with boss, or even just what's your purpose? Why are you getting up and doing what you're doing? What are you in the career path that you want to be? Any of this kind of question is great. I invite you to ask anything here. Oh, let me see this. So we're getting a question in here. I worked for corporate for 15 years and spent the last 3 years being self-employed, trying to navigate challenges and re-enter workforce. What are some effective ways to bridge the gap between corporate work and self-employment in interviews? Ooh, that's a great question. Oh, yeah, because it's a big jump. It's like, I remember when I went back to school and had to write papers again, I was like, oh my gosh, like, here's a skill that I have forgotten how to do. And it took me some time to be able to get back on and submit some passable papers. So effective ways to bridge the gap between corporate and self-employment in interviews. So let's start with the basics on this one. What you want to do in interviews is communicate that you get stuff done. And a lot of us do not know that about ourselves. Like, it's kind of hard to see ourselves, most people, we don't have a good view of ourselves. People around us will often understand us better than we understand ourselves, and kind of the impact that we make. So a key thing you can do is ask about it, is interview some of your friends or former colleagues and say like, hey, what is it? Or some of the people that you worked on. If you're if you were self-employed, ask some of your customers, some of your clients, and say, what were the results that you got? What were the most meaningful results from working with me? And that's going to give you really valuable data to put into your resume and to be able to talk about. To say, okay, this client here, they were working on this thing. I did research that helped identify some of the things they could implement, and then I helped train people in how to do that. And here were the results. This marketing agency went from this to this. So that kind of thing. I mean, you want to stay bottom lined on the results that you create. And a lot of the skills, I mean, there are some companies out there that you will have to have a certain certification. And, maybe you need to do that if you're really targeted on one company. But a lot of times people can get kind of too concerned about the certifications and spend too much time on that, and the place might not even hire you. So the next thing I want to say is that networking is a really important part of this. So you can connect with, if you're interviewing at corporations, connect with the people inside there as much as you can, and have if you can have conversations with anybody that gets your resume a little further in, that's a really good move to make. Let me know if I'm on track with your question. So I think I'm addressing it, but I like to check in with you to make sure that I'm on point, or if there's anything else that you're wanting. So, if you spent 15 years in corporate land, 3 years being self-employed, now you're wanting to get back in, I honestly don't see it as that big of an issue. It's probably mostly on for you. You probably have a lot of feelings about that transition, and are sorting through that. If I'm somebody who's hiring, I have a problem. I need that problem addressed. And if I'm talking to somebody that I think can address that problem, I mean, that's why I would hire you. So again, it's about how you communicate what your skills are. I hope that helps. Let me know if that landed for you. One of the things I like to share is that a client of mine one time interviewed so well that the owner of the company told them, I'd love to hire you. You're totally the person, but you interviewed so well, you asked such good questions that now I see that what I thought I needed help with, I don't. And so I kind of got to go back to the drawing board here, and you asked some questions that helped me think about that. So I'm going to refer you to somebody else. So you want to go in to your interviews, instead of trying to sell yourself, you want to go in interviewing them. You want to see if this company is a place you even want to work. Like, you've been independent for a little bit, and for whatever reason, if it's that you like the team environment, you want more security, or you just see this as okay, I've been independent now, but really the next step for me in my development is to be on a team. Whatever the reason is, you want to understand as you're talking in the interviews to the people that might be hiring you. You want to say, hey, is it worth me giving up my independence? Is this a place that's actually the next step for me? And when you come at it like that, I call it playing hard to get. When you engage that way, it helps you be with the anxiety in such a way, in a more appropriate way, and so you're not trying to sell yourself and look good. You're now just down to the task at hand, which is assessing what this job really is. So I hope that's helpful. Oh, cool. You got some great, thank you. Okay, that's good advice. Good to hear. I think I've definitely picked up a lot for my time as self-employed. Yeah, yeah, having to wear all hats. But sometimes it feels like companies want you to have the corporate experience to validate your skills. Do you have do you have suggestions for overcoming that perception? Huh, corporate experience. Well, you said you had 15 years corporate experience. So I don't know what you mean by it it well, let's break this down. So you say sometimes it feels like. See, that's a word that I pay a lot of attention to is when somebody says feel. Like, what do you mean? It feels like companies want you to have the corporate experience. So that's a muddy statement. There's ways that we need to tease out what you mean by that. It feels like, see, this is a bad habit that pretty much everybody I know is doing, including myself, and I'm tracking, watching myself on it, is I say a feeling, it feels like, and then I name a thought. And that right there takes me away from having grounded data. So I actually want to pay attention to what the feeling is. Okay, it feels, so I'm going to say instead of it, like I feel, I'm going to just make some assumptions about you. I'm going to speak as if I am you. I feel scared. I think companies want me to have corporate experience. So then that has me say, well, what does that mean? Because you already have corporate experience. Is it because it's not fresh corporate experience? So you're feeling afraid about that? Well, then we get to look at that fear, that underlying fear that drives, like our emotions absolutely drive us, whether we want them to or not. So we can assess that more now. I feel scared. I feel anxious that companies want me to have corporate experience. So then we get to look at, oh, is this just a limiting belief coming up? Do I kind of do I often have this sort of a thing where I think I'm not good enough? I have this kind of program running. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Even though I have 15 years of corporate experience, the fact that the last 3 years I was working independently, well, that throws out all that other 15 years. And anybody looking at me and talking to me is going to be like, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. They're totally not enough for this. See, now we can look at the unconscious mind. We can look at the deeper programming that is running when we really pay attention to the feelings. And so then I can say, wait, I'm feeling scared, but as I look at this, I actually think this is I don't think there's a whole lot of validity to this fear. Huh, okay. So, you know what? I actually feel scared most of the time when I'm interviewing. And I feel scared about a bunch of stuff in my life, but you know what? I don't need to attach that anxiety to this particular situation. In fact, I can use the fear that I have going into this interview, and I can focus that on, is this the place I want to be? I can focus that fear on, what are they not telling me? What are the things that the people interviewing me don't want to say? What are they blind to? What haven't they put together yet? There's like no perfect job out there, and everyone I have ever coached, I'm really thinking this through. Everyone, they are so excited to start at a certain company. It's their dream company. And I've helped them interview, I've helped them ask challenging questions. And within 6 months, they're coming to me saying, George, I saw some things early on about this one aspect of this company that, oh, it's a bigger challenge and I feel afraid about it and I didn't want to pay attention to it earlier. And it would have served me better to pay attention to this earlier and to ask some uncomfortable questions. So, that's just, I think, the reality of us in life. So I want to know if what I'm saying now about this, that it feels like companies want you to have corporate experiences. Okay. Oh, yeah. What you're sharing. I'll get to that in a second. It feels like companies want you to have corporate experience to validate your skills. Then I change that to, I feel concerned that companies want me to have the corporate experience to validate my skills. And then when I do that and I really claim the feeling there, I look at whether I'm feeling afraid, hurt, angry, sad, or joy about, I always try to go to the core 5 emotions, then I'm able to better assess what's reality, what's really going on. You may have heard this thing about imagined fear, real imagined fear, and real fear. Like if I was bit by a dog as a kid, then I see a dog now, and the dog's like wagging its tail, and it's obviously not going to hurt me. But I'm still going to have that fear of the dog. So that's a real fear. Oh yeah, let's say because I was bit as a kid. That's real. That really happened to me. But now in this moment, it's an imagined fear. And then there's the fear of, if I'm really out of touch with my fear, I could see a dog like snarling at me and like totally ready to bite me. I'm like, oh, it's a dog, and then it might bite me. So that's where I'm like out of touch with fear. And then there's also the real or just the imagined fear of like all dogs are terrifying and I'm not going anywhere near them. Anyway, I don't care about that analogy anymore. I want to get back to the next thing that you said. I see what you're saying. I guess it is kind of a limiting belief. It's like I'm telling myself they won't take me seriously. Whoa! So now, when we get there, we can look at how often are you walking through life with that story running of they won't take me seriously? How often is that programming happening, or is that broadcast going on? And then if it's like, wait a minute, oh my gosh, when I am talking to my kids, I can see that, whoa, there's this thing going on of, well, they won't take me seriously. And whoa, isn't that interesting that as I pay attention to this, I start to see that I'm actually communicating that to them to not take me seriously. And whoa, so I'm going into interviews and I kind of have a few ways that I communicate to people to not take me seriously. It's like I think that they're not going to take me seriously, and then I am creating that. Uh-oh. Yeah. Because when we have that kind of realization about ourselves, we can see how much more challenging we make things. And the bad news is this kind of thing doesn't change like immediately. It takes time, it takes awareness, and often the first step is just noticing that I'm doing it. So then it's like, oh great, I gotta go into these interviews. I'm watching how dramatic I can be, but whatever. I gotta go into these interviews. I'm not in tip-top shape. I'm recognizing that I'm having limiting beliefs and that I am acting in ways to create a self-fulfilling prophecy that they won't hire me because they won't take me seriously. And I'm kind of communicating that. And now I'm in this interview and I just saw myself do that. And I was like, oh, that was a way that I communicated to them, don't take me seriously. And well, that's a bit of a problem. So it takes time, it takes awareness. And what happens for me around this kind of thing is eventually, as I'm noticing myself acting out these limiting beliefs, it eventually gets so painful that I will just do something different. I will do something more productive. I will act with more self-respect and personal responsibility. And it helps for me to intentionally feel my feelings more, because what's happening in that moment where I am communicating that you shouldn't really take me seriously is I'm actually avoiding my feelings. That's the function of limiting beliefs, the function of communicating something that's untrue about me, like you shouldn't take me seriously. The reason I do that is to avoid discomfort. I hope this is helping. I appreciate how you've been going back and forth with me on this. So that's as I'm talking to you about what you're sharing, I'm putting myself into your shoes, and I want everybody who's listening in to be putting yourself in these shoes. How do you do this? You know, it's not as interesting or as useful to you to look at how everybody else does this, but it's the question of like, what are the ways that I act in limiting ways to confirm a limiting belief and keep that program going? And whoa, what are some of the feelings that I'm avoiding in doing that? And if I allow myself to feel more of the anxiety, more of the hurt, more of the irritation and anger, if I allow myself to feel that more, then I don't have to put limits on myself. I don't have to tamp that down. Then I don't have to act in a way that has people not taking me as seriously. And we all have reasons for this. There's reasons why, we've been told, oh, don't be don't brag, don't be too aggressive, don't be too competitive, whatever it is. And so we're trying to be effective, but we're trying to do it in ways that are keeping us limited, and we end up working a lot harder than we have to. So I hope that's helpful. Great question. So I'm going to do a quick run through. I want anybody else to throw in any questions that you have, whether it's on this topic or something else. Any question that you have, please throw it into the chat, and I will do my best to work it through with you. So I'm going to run this thing through, though, 15 years in corporate experience, 3 years of being self-employed, going back into the corporate space. Now I'm thinking that I'm a fraud, or maybe I'm having imposter syndrome, and I'm thinking that the corporations want me to have more experience. And as I'm looking at this, I'm starting to see, wait, I feel concerned. I've been out of that environment for a little bit, and I'm starting to notice that in my life overall, I have this kind of story running that I'm not quite good enough. And I'll look at, more of my failures than my successes. Okay, so I have a negativity bias. Okay, now as I'm going into these interviews, though, if I am leading with that, then it's going to make it less likely that they're going to want to employ me. And so I actually need to do some deeper work to change how I am with my feelings. So I might need to practice bragging. I might need to practice being a little more aggressive. I might need to practice being more curious. I don't know what it is for you, but there's all these different ways of being that none of us have fully experimented with. And so, what are those new ways of being that I'm going to experiment with that change the limiting beliefs that get me more of the things that I want, get me deeper connections with people, get me the job that I want? So, this is way harder than just having the exact right thing to say. This is a spiritual transformation. Like, developing in my career is spiritual growth. Developing as a person, me going for my potential, if I'm really doing it, it's going to be a challenge. I'm going to come up against external and internal challenges. Okay, so we're going with, if I went in with that mindset, I'd probably speak more confidently and not second guess myself so much. It's just hard to shake that doubt, Absolutely. Yeah, well, and here's the thing though, actually, I'm glad you said that, is I don't want you to shake the doubt. There's wisdom in insecurity. There's a reason for that insecurity. And that's the deeper reason why I don't want you to do it. But I also don't want you to do it because it doesn't work. It does not work for me to just say, oh, I'm going to get over it. I mean, I don't know, maybe in some small ways, but it's more about, okay, I'm getting signals. I feel anxious. I'm scared about something. Oh, and I notice this limiting belief that I have. And so, great, I can harness that fear and it can have a purpose. So I don't have to now be somebody else. I don't have to try to brag about myself. When I say, sometimes it's just helpful just to practice bragging because it gets you into another mindset. And then it can help you use the fears and anxieties that you're having in that interview and use them more accurately. Here, I'll give you a great example. Client does presentations in the C-suite, and she hates doing it. And she hated doing it so much that she was thinking about switching careers, even though her boss loved her, yada, yada. So she was like, look, if you can just help me not hate these things, this will be a huge win. So she worked her feelings. She got more in touch with her anxieties, got more in touch with how, when she's feeling afraid, that triggers all the limiting beliefs. And then she walks into a meeting, sees the VP furrow his brow, and she caught herself. She said, whoa, in the past, I would have internalized that and I would have said, there's something wrong with me. Now I need to perform. I need to make up for something. Now I need to prove myself. I need to be enough. And she rehearsed a lot, so she's good. She could do her job well, otherwise she wouldn't be in that situation. But it wasn't satisfying for her. It was like just getting burnt out from it. It wasn't nourishing. It wasn't bringing life back into her. But by allowing herself to be with that fear, instead of trying to perform on top of it, she used that fear to connect with the VP and said, sir, do you have any concerns? And she's got a ton of concerns. How's this meeting going to go? And instead of performing on top of the fear, she uses that fear to connect. Sir, do you have any concerns? And right off the bat, he starts saying, yeah, here's my concerns. And then she asks more questions. And she says, oh, yeah, I have that concern too. Yep, I get that. And pretty soon, he's then asking questions about the product. And then everybody starts engaging. Like, there was no official start to the meeting. Now they're just talking. They know why they're there. And she said it was the best sales presentation she'd ever done. And she did so well with this switch in how she was with her feelings and limiting beliefs that she shot up and started training other people. And more importantly, she was enjoying herself and not, she wasn't trying to pretend like she wasn't afraid. That's not the point. There's tons of stuff to be afraid about. You should be afraid about it. Like being alive, we want our fear response to things to maintain our life. But it's about what I'm telling myself about my fear. So I hope that's helpful. Like I've been working this stuff for years and years and years now. I've been coaching 11 or 12 years, and I second guess myself all the time. But if I stay in that loop, it's a choice whether or not I want to stay in that loop. And I am more likely to choose positive, growthful things when I allow myself to be with the discomfort. So I hope that's helpful for everybody. Great, great engagement. Thank you so much for your questions. I am going to be moving to wrap up here, and I want to remind everybody that you can set up a one-to-one with me. If being on live stream is not something you're interested in, I get it. Go ahead and set up a time with me. If you want, follow me on YouTube or on LinkedIn. If you like watching people jump into ice water, follow me on Instagram. And I'll be back here next week. And until then, pay attention to what you're feeling. Pay attention to more of your programming. And see what it is that it comes up for you is really happening. What your concerns really are. And assess how you can use those concerns in your meetings. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear this was helpful. Good, good, good. Thank you for sharing that with me. Okay. Well, everybody, take care. Reach out if you want. Otherwise,